The Russian Revolution of 1917 is often portrayed as a popular uprising against an oppressive Tsarist regime. But what if there was more to this pivotal moment in history than meets the eye? What hidden agendas and secret motivations shaped the course of events that would transform Russia and impact the entire world? To understand the complex web of interests behind the Russian Revolution, we must first set the stage. In the early 20th century, Russia was a vast empire ruled by the Romanov dynasty. Tsar Nicholas II presided over a nation struggling with widespread poverty, social inequality, and growing discontent. The disastrous Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905 and Russia's costly involvement in World War I only exacerbated these problems. As tensions mounted, various groups saw an opportunity to advance their own interests. The key players in this unfolding drama included the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, the Mensheviks, a more moderate socialist faction, liberal reformers known as the Cadets, and conservative elements within the military and aristocracy. Each of these groups had their own vision for Russia's future and their own hidden agenda. Let's start with the Bolsheviks, who would ultimately seize power in the October Revolution. While they publicly championed the cause of the workers and peasants, their true agenda was far more ambitious. Lenin and his followers sought not just to overthrow the Tsar, but to completely reshape Russian society according to their interpretation of Marxist ideology. Their hidden goal was to establish a dictatorship of the proletariat, which in practice meant concentrating power in the hands of the Bolshevik Party. The Bolsheviks' agenda included the nationalization of industry, the collectivization of agriculture, and the suppression of all opposition. They saw the revolution as just the first step in a global communist uprising. This expansionist vision would have profound consequences for Russia and the world in the decades to come. The Mensheviks, on the other hand, had a different hidden agenda. While they shared many of the Bolsheviks' socialist ideals, they believed that Russia needed to go through a period of capitalist development before it was ready for socialism. Their secret plan was to guide Russia towards a Western-style parliamentary democracy while gradually implementing socialist reforms. However, their more moderate approach would ultimately prove less appealing to the masses than the Bolsheviks' radical promises. The Liberal Cadets, or Constitutional Democratic Party, represented the interests of the emerging middle class and intelligentsia. Their hidden agenda was to transform Russia into a constitutional monarchy similar to the United Kingdom. They hoped to preserve much of the existing social order while introducing democratic reforms and civil liberties. However, their commitment to gradual change put them at odds with more radical elements and limited their popular support. Conservative factions within the military and aristocracy also had their own secret plans. Some sought to replace the ineffectual Tsar Nicholas with a stronger autocrat who could restore order and preserve their privileges. Others hoped to use the crisis to negotiate a separate peace with Germany, freeing Russia from the burdens of World War I. These conflicting agendas within the ruling class contributed to the paralysis of the government in the face of growing unrest. But the hidden agendas behind the Russian Revolution extended far beyond Russia's borders. International players saw opportunities to advance their own interests in the chaos of revolutionary Russia. Germany, still at war with Russia, provided support to Lenin and the Bolsheviks, hoping their anti-war stance would knock Russia out of World War I. They arranged for Lenin's return to Russia from exile in Switzerland, in what became known as the sealed train journey. The German government's secret agenda was to destabilize Russia and free up troops from the Eastern Front to focus on their war effort in the West. While this strategy initially succeeded, it would have unforeseen consequences as the Bolshevik ideology spread beyond Russia's borders, eventually threatening Germany itself. Other Western powers, including Britain, France, and the United States, also had hidden motives in their dealings with revolutionary Russia. While publicly supporting the provisional government that emerged after the February Revolution, they were primarily concerned with keeping Russia in the war against Germany. Their secret agenda involved providing financial and material support to anti-Bolshevik forces during the subsequent Russian Civil War, hoping to prevent the spread of communism and protect their economic interest in Russia. Japan, which had defeated Russia in the 1905 war, saw the revolution as an opportunity to expand its influence in East Asia. Their hidden agenda included supporting separatist movements in Siberia and the Russian Far East, with the goal of creating buffer states under Japanese influence. So, who were the true beneficiaries of the Russian Revolution and its hidden agendas? In the short term, the Bolsheviks emerged as the clear winners, consolidating their power and establishing the world's first socialist state. Lenin and his inner circle, including figures like Leon Trotsky and Joseph Stalin, gained unprecedented authority over the vast Russian Empire. The working class and peasantry, in whose name the revolution was ostensibly fought, saw some initial gains. Land was redistributed, and workers gained more control over factories. However, these benefits were often short-lived, as the realities of civil war, economic collapse, and political repression set in. Certain segments of society, particularly women and ethnic minorities, benefited from new laws promoting equality and cultural autonomy. The revolution also led to advancements in education, with literacy rates improving dramatically in the following years. Internationally, the Russian Revolution inspired socialist and communist movements around the world. The formation of the Communist International, or Comintern, provided a platform for spreading revolutionary ideas globally. This benefited leftist parties and labor movements in many countries, giving them a powerful ally and model to emulate. However, the long-term consequences of the revolution and its hidden agendas were far more complex. The establishment of the Soviet Union as a global superpower fundamentally altered the balance of world politics. The ideological conflict between communism and capitalism shaped much of 20th century history, from the Cold War to proxy conflicts in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The Soviet model of centralized economic planning influenced development strategies in many countries, particularly in the developing world. While this approach led to rapid industrialization in some cases, it also resulted in inefficiencies, environmental degradation, and human rights abuses. The suppression of political dissent and the establishment of a one-party state under the Bolsheviks set a precedent for authoritarian rule that would persist throughout the Soviet era and beyond. The hidden agenda of maintaining party control at all costs led to the development of a vast security apparatus and the infamous Gulag system. In the realm of culture and science, the revolution had mixed effects. While it promoted universal education and scientific research, it also led to ideological control over artistic expression and academic inquiry. The concept of socialist realism in art and literature stifled creativity, while fields like genetics suffered from political interference. The collectivization of agriculture, part of the Bolsheviks' hidden agenda to transform rural society, had devastating consequences. Millions died in famines, particularly in Ukraine, where the Holodomor claimed countless lives. The destruction of the kulak class of prosperous peasants fundamentally altered rural social structures. Internationally, the export of revolution benefited communist parties and movements worldwide, but also led to conflicts and interventions. The Soviet Union's support for revolutionary movements often clashed with the interests of Western powers, contributing to tensions in many parts of the world. The arms race that developed between the Soviet Union and the United States, rooted in the ideological conflict stemming from the Russian Revolution, diverted enormous resources from social needs to military spending. This benefited the military-industrial complexes in both countries, but came at a great cost to society at large. The legacy of the Russian Revolution's hidden agendas continues to shape our world today. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 led to the emergence of new nation-states and political systems, but many of the underlying tensions and power structures remain. In Russia itself, the aftermath of the revolution and 70 years of Soviet rule has left a complex legacy. The country has struggled with the transition to a market economy and democratic governance, with elements of authoritarianism persisting. The concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a new elite, often connected to the old Soviet nomenclatura, echoes some of the inequalities that the revolution sought to address. Globally, the ideological conflict sparked by the Russian Revolution has evolved. While traditional communism has declined, new forms of leftist thought and anti-capitalist movements continue to draw inspiration from the revolutionary ideals of 1917. At the same time, the failures and excesses of the Soviet system serve as cautionary tales for those seeking radical social change. The hidden agendas of the Russian Revolution also left their mark on international institutions and norms. The United Nations, formed in the aftermath of World War II, was shaped by the need to manage the competing interests of capitalist and communist blocs. The concept of universal human rights, while rooted in Western liberal traditions, was also influenced by socialist ideas of economic and social rights. In the realm of espionage and intelligence, the practices developed during and after the Russian Revolution set patterns that persist to this day. The use of disinformation, propaganda, and covert operations to influence foreign governments and populations has become a standard tool of statecraft, employed by nations across the ideological spectrum. The revolution's impact on political philosophy and social theory cannot be overstated. Marxism-Leninism, developed as the official ideology of the Soviet state, influenced political movements and academic discourse worldwide. Even as the Soviet system collapsed, elements of this thinking continued to inform critiques of capitalism and globalization. In education, the Soviet emphasis on technical and scientific training influenced educational systems in many countries. The space race, a direct outcome of the Cold War rivalry stemming from the revolution, spurred advancements in science and technology education globally. The Russian Revolution's hidden agenda of creating a new type of society also led to unique social experiments. The communal apartments, or communalkas, designed to foster collective living, shaped urban life in the Soviet Union for generations. While often problematic, these experiments in social engineering continue to fascinate sociologists and urban planners. In the arts, the revolutionary spirit inspired avant-garde movements that challenged traditional forms and sought to create a new proletarian culture. While later suppressed by Stalin's regime, the early Soviet period saw remarkable innovations in film, theatre, and visual arts that continue to influence artists today. The revolution's anti-religious agenda, part of the Bolsheviks' plan to create a secular socialist society, had far-reaching consequences. The suppression of religious institutions altered the spiritual landscape of Russia and many Soviet republics. The resurgence of religion after the fall of the Soviet Union highlights the enduring nature of faith despite decades of official atheism. In terms of gender equality, the Russian Revolution initially promoted policies far ahead of their time, including easy divorce, legalized abortion, and workplace protections for women. While many of these gains were later rolled back under Stalin, they set precedents that influenced women's rights movements globally. The revolution's impact on environmental policy is often overlooked. The Soviet model of rapid industrialization, driven by the hidden agenda of competing with capitalist powers, led to severe environmental degradation. This legacy continues to affect public health and ecosystems in former Soviet territories. In conclusion, the hidden agendas behind the Russian Revolution were numerous and complex, involving domestic factions, international powers, and competing ideologies. While the Bolsheviks emerged as the immediate victors, the true beneficiaries of the revolution varied greatly over time and across different spheres of influence. The consequences of these hidden agendas have reverberated through history, shaping global politics, economics, and culture in ways that continue to affect us today. From the structure of international relations to the debates over economic systems, from artistic movements to environmental policies, the legacy of 1917 endures. As we reflect on this pivotal moment in history, we are reminded of the power of ideas to shape the world, the unintended consequences of radical change, and the complex interplay between stated ideals and hidden motives. The Russian Revolution stands as a testament to the profound impact that hidden agendas can have on the course of human events, leaving us to ponder what unseen forces might be shaping our world today.